Okay, good morning. This is a quick sort of impromptu live video that I've put up just because there was a question about the best times or how many times a week to hit a body part in order to get maximal muscle growth. So I thought I'd just do a quick video that you can watch back at your leisure at any time during the day. And I'm going to go over a few quick principles here. So when I talk about muscle growth and all the things that I do as a coach and with clients and stuff like that, I'm always talking about bodybuilding. I'm not talking about maximizing strength. I'm not talking about maximizing fitness. What I'm talking about is building as much muscle as possible and keeping body fat as low as is reasonably possible with that goal, because if you're always aiming to be shredded, you're not going to be growing as much as you possibly can. But there's a nice balance that you can find with most training protocols with bodybuilding in order to get a decent amount of muscle growth and also hold on to a decent level of low body fat, which allows you to progress and still look good at the same time. So that's what my coaching is about. It's all about progressing your body, lower body fat, more muscle within certain regions. So none of our clients are looking to be shredded. None of them are looking to be massive off-season people. It's nice in the middle. Anytime you want to take your kit off and show what a good body you got, that's the time. So that's the goal we aim for. So with that in mind, what is the best way to build muscle as fast as possible? So there's a few principles here. First of all, you've got to understand that you can stimulate muscle building as in hypertrophy by a number of ways. The first way is mechanical overload. So mechanical overload would be applying as much weight as possible until the lift fails. So this is essentially loading the bar until you can't get any more reps out. Now, a little caveat around that: if you're going for strength training, that should be below 5 reps, which is why powerlifters generally tend to do like 5x5 and stuff like that. And if you're going for hypertrophy bodybuilding, the research has shown that really you need to be in the realms around about 7 reps to failure with your maximal weight in order to stimulate muscle building at the optimal rate. Now, that's not to say as bodybuilders we can't do like lower reps. We can't see what we can get for deadlifts of 3 reps or whatever. Absolutely, you can do that. But when you're doing that, be aware that what you're doing there is trying to maximize your strength and not maximizing your muscle building. But all these things come into the whole, okay? So we want to be stronger, so we want to be able to lift more weights for longer. That's going to promote more muscle building. So I'm never against trying to get like what your best deadlift is, you know, best 2 or 3 reps on deadlift, best 2 or 3 reps on squats. I'm never against that. But what I am against is people going, that's how I grow, because it isn't. Yes, as you get stronger, as a side effect of that, you're going to build more muscle, but it's not going to be optimized. What we're looking to do is optimize muscle building, and as a side effect of that, we get stronger, okay? So more muscle, you can lift more weight, yeah? Okay, so mechanical overload, that's the first one. And you'll notice if you're doing the Gain 5 program, you'll notice that the second exercise in on pretty much all the workouts is an exercise where the last set is between 5 and 10 reps. So I'm looking to sort of do 10, 10, 5 and 5. And that's part of the strength optimization element of the Gain 5 program. So that's why that's in there. The next way we can maximize hypertrophy is by volume overload. So mechanical overload is as much weight as the system can take. Now we're going to put pressure on the capacity of the system to absorb punishment. So what we're doing with volume overload is we're looking for, say, 10 to 15 type of reps. So we're going less weight because obviously we can't get, you know, our maximal lift for 10 to 15 reps. But what we are going for is trying to stimulate the muscle fibres, which maybe aren't going to be used for the big strength lifts. Just a bit of coffee. Now, sometimes when I explain this, people have a hard time understanding it. So, well, shouldn't we be taxing the muscle with as much weight to make sure that it grows? Well, yes, but also no. What you've got to think about is that the body is full of redundancies, okay? And actually biology is full of redundancies. If you look at any biological system, there's always redundancies. If you look at, say a pet cat or whatever else, when they're talking about giving birth, the cat will always give birth to I would say, normally give birth to less pups or less kittens than she has capacity to feed, as in via her nipples. And that's because there's always redundancies employed in biology. There's always redundancies employed in the human body as well. So mainly humans give birth to one child at a time, and this is why they have, you know, a pair of breasts, not like 6 or 7 or whatever. So you've got to think about there's always redundancies employed. Now that's a bit of an offshoot, a bit of a weird way of explaining this, but you'll get this in a second. When we think about training, if you ever look at someone who's run a marathon, who's run like and absolutely collapsed at the end of the marathon, what you'll find at the end of that, if they do a biopsy on that, and they have done this, they've done sort of marathon testing where the guy or girl has run the marathon, literally collapsed at the end, and they've done a biopsy of the muscle fibre, and there is still glycogen in the muscle fibre after they've collapsed at the end of the marathon. So the thing there is they haven't collapsed because they've run out of glycogen. They've collapsed because their body has just given up. You know, their body has sent a signal back to the brain saying, look, you know, we're in a pretty bad situation here. We've got to stop soon. Otherwise, we're going to be in a situation which is life-threatening. And that is why people collapse and then they can walk away afterwards. Now, you know, we talk about people when they're in the gym going, oh yeah, I could completely depleted my glycogen out of a workout. No, mate, you absolutely did not. And there is a couple of studies that show this, where they put the subjects through an absolutely horrendous, you think gain 5's hard. This workout, they had like leg extensions, front and back squat supersets. They had leg press. Actually, that is one of the Gain 5 workouts. So yeah, but anyway, they did that workout, and what happened is that the guys were absolutely, it's a proper bodybuilding depletion type workout, volume overload workout. Smashed them, absolutely smashed them. Did a biopsy, 60% glycogen left in the muscles. But these people could not lift anymore. Now, when you think about that, there's always that redundancy. Then we've got to think about muscle fibres. And when we talk about muscle fibres, is that the body, when it's going for a maximal lift, will always fire as many muscle fibres as possible to get that lift. Now, but it's got to consider you've got to be able to walk away from that lift. No point firing every single muscle fibre to get the maximum lift and then not being able to walk away afterwards. Okay, there's a survival mechanism there. You might get eaten by dinosaurs or whatever. So there's always that survival, that redundancy mechanism in there. And when you think about that, then you start to think about why volume training is so effective at growing muscle. Because with volume training, you've got muscle fibers which are really strong, which can fire for the big lifts, and then you've got redundant muscle fibers which can fire for lighter lifts. And if you've ever done drop sets and stuff like this, you'll know what I'm talking about. You do a lift of say 20 kilos, 30 kilos, drop down to say 15 kilos, and all of a sudden you can lift more. It's not that the muscles have massively recovered in that time. What's happened is that the muscles which are stronger, they've given up, and now you're recruiting lesser muscle fibers, less strong muscle fibers, in order to complete that lift. Okay, so now you get sort of hopefully understanding where the bodybuilding volume principle and why I promote volume training comes into it, is that if you've only fired for maximal lift, as in a mechanical overload, you've potentially wasted the opportunity to train those other muscle fibers to failure as well. So when we're talking about volume training, and we're talking about 15 to 20 reps, for example, or 70 rep leg press, if you've had a go at that one, you know, if you do that sort of training, there's no way you're going to maximize the weight for that. But you can keep going and keep going and keep going, and the fibers that do fail is going to be more of a proportion of the total muscle fiber in the leg, in the quad, in the arm, whatever, than it would be for a maximal lift. So then hopefully you're starting to understand why volume training aligned with the strength training element is so effective at building muscle very, very quickly. And if you can understand that, and then look at the Gain 5 program and actually all the programs I write, you'll start to understand why it's constructed in that way. So then we've got mechanical overload, volume overload. There's also an element of growth from pump as well, but that's, I suppose, in debate at the moment, because that is volume overload as well. But I would say volume overload, mechanical overload, the two ones you want to think of when you think about your own training plan. Okay, so then we want to talk about how many times a week do you want to do this? Now, there's been some research done recently, it's about maybe 10 years ago, I think, and you can look it up. It was done, I think, by Keith Barr, Professor Keith Barr. You can go and search him on the internet. He did some training with I think it was like Olympic college athletes or something like that. Really highly trained people. And what they did is they put them through a twice a week full body type program. So they were trained to failure once, and then they were trained to failure again a couple of days later. And what they noticed is although strength gains might have been slightly higher in the people who did the once a week protocol, the people who did the twice a week protocol actually gain more muscle fiber. So they normally use cross sectional area, so that how big the muscle is, and they noticed that was bigger. And that's what it's really important we're thinking about when we're bodybuilding. We're looking to how big the muscle is, not how strong it is, how big the muscle is, because you want it to be more shapely. So they've noticed that training twice a week. Now the problem is that most bodybuilders, when they think about I'm going into the gym, it's like I'm going to war, I'm going to destroy legs, I'm going to this, that, the other. And I did train like that for a long time. And there's this sort of rite of passage that if you don't train legs so hard that you can't walk out, you haven't really trained legs, or I'm going to destroy my back, or blah, 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 whatever, you know. And they train the body part hard once a week, and then they're on to the next one, then the next one, then the next one, you know. But if you think about that in a logical sense, when you train a muscle to failure, and imagine a graph here, and you'll get a spike of when you train to failure, and that spike is a muscle protein synthesis spike. It goes off in the muscle to say, look, the muscle is damaged, we need to repair it, and then the body sends all the things it needs to repair that muscle and grow bigger. Okay, but that subsides after about 2 or 3 days. Now, you still have got central nervous system damage from doing such a massive amount of training, and that can take up to 7 days to heal. But here's what I want you to think a little bit differently here. What about if, once we've trained the muscle to failure, we then think, right, okay, we're going to train that muscle to failure, and then we're going to move on to something else. Okay, we're not going to destroy the muscle, we're not going to obliterate the muscle, we're just going to train it to stimulate the muscle to grow. Okay, so training to failure, either by volume or mechanical, will stimulate this muscle protein synthesis. Now, a really good researcher called Lee Hamilton, Dr. Lee Hamilton, who I think is Professor Lee Hamilton now, I had a lot of conversations with him. Very knowledgeable guy, he loves bodybuilding, he loves weight training. And I had a number of conversations with him, and I was fortunate to attend one of his meetings, one of his lectures, where he talks about signaling. Now, he said about the signaling factor, and if you push a domino over, you push that domino. You can't, if you push it any harder, the dominoes don't go any faster. You know, so once you've sent the signal, that's it, the signal's off. And you can apply the same to the muscle building side of things. So you think about, you push that domino, as once you've triggered that muscle failure and you pushed it over, that signal's been sent, it's gone off to the body to say we need to grow the muscle bigger. There's no real need to really overload the muscle, although if we're talking about volume training, we could do more muscle fibers, etc, etc, etc. But the fact is if you completely annihilate the muscle, then what you've done is you've just made it so it's harder to train it again. And that muscle will recover to a certain degree, say 2 or 3 days later. So what we can do is we can train it hard one day, so we can do like a traditional, say, bodybuilding workout, but we're not going to annihilate stage, we're just going to stimulate stage. And then we come a couple 3 days later, and we do, say, a set of leg press or a set of squats. So say we do like a big leg session Monday, we come back Thursday, and we do like a bit of leg press to failure, you know, a bit of volume leg press to failure, yeah? You're still going to send that signal, although maybe a slightly weaker signal than you would have done on the Monday, but it's still a failure signal that goes to the body saying we need to build more legs again. Now what you've done is you sent one signal on Monday, spike, and then another signal on Thursday, spike. You've got 2 signals to build muscle in that week rather than one. Now remember, push the dominoes over, send the one signal, the domino's gone. If we send that signal again, we've got another way of stimulating the body to build more muscle. Now hopefully that's starting to make sense as well. So if you look at the Gain 5 program, you can start to see why we do the major body part and then we chuck in something weird at the end. So we do like a load of like legs and then we do a bit of chest at the end. But then a couple of days later, we're coming on to the main chest workout and with like a set of leg press or something. So hopefully you can start to see why I'm not a big fan anymore of really destroying and annihilating the muscle. Now you might be saying, well, hold on, Tom, those Gain 5 workouts that you give me, I'm utterly crippled. Yes, you are, because you're not used to training in that way. Once you've been doing that for a little while, once you've been doing those workouts for a couple of months, those style of workouts, that will be your staple. That will be what you think is the right way to train, or what you know is the right way to train, because it is the right way to train. And you'll be doing those things not easily, because it will still be taxing, because you can increase the weight or whatever, but that will be what you assess as a proper workout. And by doing that, you'll start to see more growth come on than what you have been before. Now, I know people watching this have been sort of they're 3 weeks into game 5, or maybe coming up to their 4th week, and they are already starting to see that thing happening. Now, imagine that over 6 months rather than 4 weeks. That sort of training over that time. And that is the premise of what I do in hybrid coaching. That's what I do in the hybrid bodies, where we're looking to really challenge your thinking about training and focus your mind on what's right for you to train and how to get the most results, rather than this sort of flag of honor where we're wearing, we've just completely destroyed the muscle. Okay. The other sort of thing I want to end on here is the fact that there was a study which was, I don't think it's been replicated. It was just an interesting study where they analysed the muscle protein synthesis response. Now, they did this in people who'd completely destroyed the muscle in terms of a real massive overload workout, and they did it in people who had just stimulated muscle protein synthesis. Okay, and what they found was that the people who really annihilated the muscle, I want to put this in a sort of a sense that it is easy to understand. You've got an amount of muscle protein synthesis stimulus you can use up to repair the muscle. If you've completely overloaded that muscle and all that stimulus goes on repairing the muscle, there's not going to be a lot of growth there. But if you put an amount into to repair the muscle and you've still got some left over, then that element can go for growth. So here again is another way, or another reason why it's not a good idea to completely destroy your muscle in the workout, so you can't walk, you can't lift anything for 7 days. I'm not a fan of that sort of training. I used to be when I was bodybuilding before, 15 years ago. As I progressed as a coach and progressed in my understanding and knowledge of the sport and the research around it, I've had more results in myself and with my clients by giving them less initial volume in the session and then giving them more later on in the week, and not smashing and overloading that muscle so they can't walk away. Now, some coaches will go, yeah, all my clients, they destroy the muscle. I feel great when they're, when they're crippled afterwards. Okay, that's fine, but those guys are not growing as much as they possibly could. My goal with hybrid bodies and all the programs I write is to get you growing as fast as you can. And also, little sort of a PS at the end, I suppose, is that if you are able to train with a decent amount of volume twice a week, the amount of calories that you're burning through those muscles is going to be higher, so your output total for the week is going to be higher. Plus, you're not going to feel so tired and beat up, and you're probably going to enjoy your sessions a bit more. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I just did it off the cuff here, so I've got no notes or anything else, but I just wanted to share some of the sort of the knowledge, I suppose, that I've accumulated, and hope that makes sense. And hopefully, when you look at the Game 5 program, you'll understand why that program is constructed in that way, to give you that sort of double failure signal, but also not to completely annihilate you on every single session. Okay, that's 18 minutes, so I'm going to stop there. Any questions, just put below. Hope you have a great day, and I'll speak to you later.